one like this. First of all, is this an and or an or inequality? And, yeah, okay. So the and are written in the three parts, right? How do we solve this? What's our strategy here? What are we trying to do? I don't want steps, but just overall. Isolate x in the middle, right? Good, exactly. So we're just trying to isolate that x, okay? And we're just going to follow the steps like we would inverse operations to get that x by itself, but everything we do, we have to do to all three parts of that triple inequality. So what should we probably do first here? Say it again. Yeah, clear fractions. Sure. So we want to distribute what? 3. Yep, we'll distribute a 3. So if I distribute 3 to the left part of our inequality, what's that going to give me? 3 times 1/3. Yeah, it's going to be 1, isn't it? Good. The 3 is going to cancel the denominator, and I'm just going to get 1. If I distribute 3 to the center part, the middle part, I have to distribute to both terms in the middle, right? So what's that going to give me for 3 times 3 is going to give me 9 minus, and then 3 times 2/3, 2. That's going to cancel the denominator, so I'm going to get 2x. And then finally, if I distribute all the way over there, I get 6. And do I need to flip any inequalities?
Yes. Right now. No, you don't.
I don't, do I? Because I multiplied by a positive, so I'm fine. So the inequalities all stay just like they were. And that helps a bunch, though. No more fractions. So everybody take a close look at that. Now I want you to tell me what are going to be the next 2 steps in order to isolate x. First I subtract 9, right? Get rid of that. And then divide by -2. Good. So if we subtract 9, cancels those guys, right? And I end up with -8. I just subtracted, so I don't need to flip any signs. In the middle, I'm just going to get my -2x. And then over here, 6 minus 9 is -3. And then you guys correctly said divide by -2. Do I need to flip signs?
Yes.
Yes, I divided by a negative. So I've got to flip my inequalities. What do I get on the far left? 4. In the middle, those guys cancel, so I just get an x in the middle. And on the right, negative divided by negative is positive. And I can't simplify that. I'm just stuck with 3/2. And you said I do have to flip signs, right? So then this one's going to become, it's going to get flipped backwards like that. This one's going to get flipped backwards like that. Okay, and I'm there. I isolated the x, but this would only be worth partial credit. How come? What's wrong with this one? I gotta twist the whole thing around because the inequalities have to open to the right. So think how we do that then. The x stays in the middle, and we're just going to take these inequalities one at a time, but we're going to transfer them to the other side of the x. So this one, when we're reading a triple inequality like that, we always start in the middle. So what is that blue inequality starting with x? X is, no, x is less than, right? Because I'm starting in the middle and reading it backwards. Everybody agree? Remember, the alligator always eats the bigger one, and remember that stuff, right? So x is less than or equal to 4. I want to put it on the right side, though, so I'm just going to write it like that. Okay? How would I read the red one, starting in the middle? X is greater than 3/2. I'm going to start in the middle. This one I want to go to the left, though, so I start in the middle. X is greater than 3/2. There it is. Everybody see that? Okay, it's exactly the same thing. The other way we talked about this It's exactly the same thing as writing this on a glass slide and just twisting the whole thing around. So everything gets flipped around that x, including the inequalities, right? Okay, so then they're going to want you to graph that and write it in interval notation. Now they typically, I wish the order was different, they typically ask for the interval notation first and the graph second. But what you should do, you're always doing all your work in your notebooks, right? That's what you should be doing. So you're going to write the, I recommend you do the graph first because it's really easy to go from a graph to interval notation, right? So if we graph this guy, where are my important numbers going to be on the graph, obviously? 3 halves and 4, which is going to be to the right of 3 halves, right? Okay, so how about this first inequality? X is greater than 3 halves. What's that look like? Okay, good. Open endpoint, arrow going to the right. How about the x is less than or equal to 4? Okay. But we're talking about an and statement, so that's an intersection. I can only take the part that is double graphed, where they're both graphed at the same time, which would be where? Start where? There you go. Right? So ours would look like, whoops. Would look like that, wouldn't it? Okay. And you probably could have just jumped right to the graph, because you know an and statement, we're only going to graph the things between the lower and the upper values, right? Only between the endpoints. And then now we could use that to write this in interval notation. So I got a comma in the middle. What would go on the left? 3 halves with parentheses or brackets? Good, because it's open, right? There's no equal sign. And on the right? 4 with, okay, good. Because you see, I've got one finite interval there, don't I, right? I've got one interval with endpoints on both the left and the right this time. Okay, make sense? That help a little bit? Okay, jump to it. You're good. Get questions answered? Good, good deal.